What I'm really fascinated by in this race for automatic promotion from the Championship, which now looks like it's going to be 3 teams, doesn't it, rather than 4? For so much of this campaign, we've considered Sunderland as part of the automatic promotion race. I think at the moment, 11 points off, you'd have to discount the Black Cats following that 3-0 demolition by Coventry City at the weekend, and it could be that they play the Sky Blues in the playoff semi-final. So that would leave us with Burnley, Leeds and Sheffield United. All 3 of those teams have very obvious strengths, and also all 3 of them also have reasons to doubt, even though they've got an extremely high points tally in each case, which has allowed them to sort of separate themselves from a bit of a muchness chasing pack. I think in terms of Leeds United, you're looking at an extremely creative side who are also good defensively, but have a questionable goalkeeper in Ilian Meslier, which could breed some nerves at the back end of the season. Burnley, on the other hand, have had this formidable defence and a goalkeeper that you just can't beat sometimes, and most of the time, in fact, in James Trafford. Some question marks over the course of the season as to whether they've created enough chances at a high enough rate that you would think they can sort of repeat that over the last 10 games or so. But certainly some really rock solid defensive foundation to take into the business end. And then Sheffield United, who have a great goalkeeper in their own right in Michael Cooper, and seem to have this habit of staying in games and hanging on in there and fighting, and a great team spirit, and staying in together under a manager in Chris Wilder, to whom this means everything, as we saw on Sunday. At the same time, as much as they have loads of individual quality in that squad, it's not like they've dominated many games. So again, 3 teams with very obvious strengths, 3 teams with reasons to doubt themselves going into the business end. I think it's beautifully poised. So which 2 are going to come out on top, and which of them is going to have to settle for the nerve-jangling playoffs? That's what we're going to be discussing on this Championship podcast. Yes, welcome along to EFL Debate. You can do us a massive favour before we start by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. That would help us out an awful lot. Delighted to be joined by my lovely co-host for the evening, Ollie Mann of the excellent Sheff United Way. Ollie's in particularly good mood this evening after yesterday's result. You still on a bit of a high after that, Ollie?
I'm still on a massive high. Yes, Gab. Obviously, yesterday, it got banana skin written all over it. We saw Leeds make that massive comeback from 2-0 down at QPR. Burnley then went and did a bit of a demolition of their own. And so all the pressure was there going into Sunday. Obviously, Wednesday wanted to make it as difficult as possible. They themselves have been making a bit of noise in recent weeks about what they were going to do on this particular game. So, yeah, it was fantastic to come through what was an immense challenge. I thought Wednesday played really well on the day, but they really did push us as much as they could. And so, yeah, really grateful to Michael Cooper. And words I never thought would leave my mouth, Gab. Really grateful to Rhian Brewster. Yeah, what a win. That really felt huge in terms of this automatic promotion race. So, yeah, I'm delighted.
If he only scores, he scored more than 1 goal for Sheffield United, just about. But he might have only he might as well. He only needed 1 goal, and if it's the winner at Hillsborough, that'll do.
A cult hero forever and ever from now on. He's somebody whose name will be written in history, because obviously it's not just a winner at Hillsborough, it's a winner that secured us the double over Wednesday this season. It's the first time in 126 years that either Sheffield team has completed a double without conceding a goal. All the stats seem to just keep on rolling. And yeah, Brewster has made sure that he will forever be in history with United for more than just being a waste of 24 million quid.
Well, we've got to give him a bit of love after that, certainly.
All the love. I will never again have a bad word to say about our hero, Rhian Brewster. What a man.
Absolutely, yeah. Chris Wilder, we've got to talk about. I mean, I loved seeing that footage of him being at the back of the pub, having a go back at Wednesday after he'd been given that welcoming committee when the team bus packed up at Hillsborough.
Yeah, he got an absolute hero's welcome, I think, and he absolutely loved it. You could see it on his face, They'd all queued up, waiting to get there, waited for him to come off the bus, giving him all the booze you could, and you could almost see his face going,
Yeah.
exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I wanted out of my visit to Hillsborough. And yeah, it's always going to be the same, that if they're going to dish it out, he's going to be more than happy to give it back, I think, at full time. Obviously, enjoying himself again, maybe not quite as much as he enjoyed himself after the game at Bramall Lane earlier in the season, but yeah, it was always nice to see him take that opportunity to celebrate with the fans and to bring some of the players out as well. Sidney Peck, Michael Cooper. There's been a few others who we've seen caught up in some of the celebrations, and it really shows the togetherness of the team, but also how connected they are with the fans at the minute. So yeah, some fantastic scenes and things that we've absolutely loved to see. And obviously for Wilder in particular, the way that he was able to celebrate with George Baldock's shirt as well and really tribute that game to George, obviously who sadly passed earlier in the season, but yeah, just some really nice scenes post-game yesterday that were great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I look at Danny Röhl, I think his pinnacle is possibly winning a Champions League one day with Bayern Munich, or possibly winning a World Cup with Germany. Whereas I think Chris Wilder's pinnacle is right here. I think, right from the beginning of his career, if he could have been offered the chance to win a Steel City derby at Hillsborough, which he's actually done twice now, I think he would have taken that over almost anything else, anything he could have achieved for any other club. I think it's all Sheffield United for him, and I think that's something that's just so special to see from an observational point of view, because I don't think once Chris Wilder leaves Sheffield United, the way modern football's going, I don't think there's going to be many more managers in the game like him, really.
No, I don't. I think he is part of a dying breed where that connection, that real old school mentality that he's got. And, it doesn't work for everybody. Opposition fans don't, like Wednesday fans will hate him, just understandably so.
Yeah.
But also, I was talking to some of the Not the Top 20 boys the other day where we were talking about Chris Wilder and about what he's done, but also about that kind of the celebrations yesterday, for example, how they'd look at it from an outside perspective and say, it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? I mean, you've got bigger things, focus on promotion, but it's all about the fact that it's this connection with United. The way I tried to talk about it was 18 months ago, I've never hated a Sheffield United team the way I hated this one. Every player, everything about them, every single thing that had happened from promotion to the Premier League through that next 12 months had just driven this wedge between the fan base and the club. And we couldn't be more disconnected. I just didn't have a good word to say about any individual Sheffield United player. And then Chris Wilder creates this mentality, this connection. He gets in there with the crowd, gets in there with the fans. He's chanting, he's celebrating. And that's all about rebuilding this Sheffield United as a club. That's including the fans, the players, the manager. Everything about it is united and together. And I think that's such a special thing to be able to create. And it's really difficult to do that. And I think particularly when someone is as big a fan as Wilder is at United, I think it is the pinnacle for him, but also arguably it's the pinnacle that it's going to be for us, if we're going to achieve the things we want to achieve, if we are ever going to cement ourselves as a team in the Premier League. I don't really see how we do it without Chris Wilder at the minute, because he just seems to be the one who can get that extra 10% out of this team, get the extra 10% out of the club. And hopefully that's exactly what we need going into what's going to be a really difficult last 8 games and potentially beyond.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm over the earlier, Ollie, earlier in the season, I was kind of taking this view that Sheffield United wouldn't be able to sustain the results because they'd been edging out these tight games, and eventually you'd come to a point where, the results would even out and some of those 2-1s would go to a 2-1 for the opposition kind of thing. But now, because it's gone on for so long, I'm sort of just... I'm kind of willing to go with it a bit more just because I've seen you model it time and time again.
Yeah, completely. And it is, I've been the same. We joked about this a little bit last time we were together, Gav, where I said kind of, is it sustainable to keep winning by 1 goal? Well, I first started asking that question in October. So it feels a bit sustainable to still be asking the same question at the end of March by the time we next play. So, yeah, I think if I was a fan of another team, say if I'm a Coventry fan, I would probably be sat there thinking I'd quite like to play United in the playoffs, because there's no way they can keep edging out 1-0 wins. There's no way that they can keep with the current sort of performance level and us not stand a chance. They will feel as though we're there to be got at. We're a team that they can play against. But nobody has. Ultimately, that's the message. That's where things have come to, you know. We've won. We are currently, as it stands, the best team in the championship. Over the last 38 games, we have been the best team in the championship.
You've accumulated the most points.
We've accumulated the most points of any team in the championship. And that is, it might not pass the eye test. It might be a bit stodgy. And it might be like it was at Hillsborough, to be honest, yesterday, where we're indebted to the fact that we've got the best keeper in the league. We're indebted to the fact that we've got absolute quality up front that can create those chances. The move by Tyrese Campbell to set up the chance for Ryan Brewster is just incredible. The way he spins the defender, stands him up, beats him again, drills it across. All of those moments mean that we are a team who can perform when it matters. And I think that's the big thing that's shone to me, is that if you were to say to me, do I think that watching us for 90 minutes every week, we're the best team? No. But in the moments that matter most, do I think we're the best team? I think we might be. Because I don't see, you know, Burnley, for all their incredible things, I think it's a defensive unit that makes them stand out. They're all across that defense. But I think we've got the best keeper in the league. In the moments that matter, I think he makes saves that just completely transform a game. He makes saves that keep you in it. He did it at Hillsborough, where he's made 2 huge saves to keep it at 0-0 and then at 1-0. He's done it time and time again. And then up front, Tyrese Campbell, he's just a player. I know his goals aren't. It's because he's not being able to play. He's not fit enough to do 90 minutes. He's not fit enough to play every week. But my God, when he plays, is he good? I love him. I love them all today, Gab. I'm in a great mood.
Yeah, I think we touched on this last time, Ollie. I love the way Tyrese Campbell stretches the game for you.
He's so good. The way that he does it is so clever as well, because it's all about, it actually brings more out of Gustavo Harmer, the way that Tyrese Campbell plays that position at centre forward. Because obviously we start with Harmer out on the left. And what you see happen time and time again is Harrison Burrows will spread the game, come and stand right on the byline. And you think, right, Jesus Christ, all the space in the world is down this left wing. Like, Gustavo Harmer's moved inside to the centre. He's dragged the fullback with him. And so there's just tons of space for Burrows to run in. But instead of running it himself, he just plays it straight into the channel, gets Tyrese Campbell stretching the defenders, getting the centre halves dragged out of a position, creating a bit of space for Gustavo Harmer in the centre. It just works perfectly at the moment. We do seem to have found a way to get him really stretching teams, really asking difficult questions of the defenders. And I thought that one-on-one play yesterday for our goal, I thought was just outstanding centre forward play. I mean, the defender, he's not covered himself in glory, but, you know, he's received the ball out wide, dribbled it towards the edge of the box and then stopped. And he's just stood the defender up. And he's just got that quick burst of speed to then knock it past him, get to the byline and drill it across goal. It's just perfect centre forward play and what you'd want any player to be able to do in that situation. And yeah, I think of all the players that we signed in the summer, he's the one who has undoubtedly been the best signing, but also, well, second best signing, Michael Cooper. But other than that, has also been probably the biggest shock, because I knew that Michael Cooper was one of the best keepers in the championship. I knew that Callum O'Hare was going to be a pressing machine, who was going to be one of the most effective players at playing that role. We knew that these were standouts. Tyrese Campbell had been injured for a long time. It was, 5 years since he had his breakout season at Stoke, when he last scored a lot of goals. And so you didn't know what to get from him. But what we have got is somebody who's performing right at the top of the championship at the minute.
Yeah, it's great to see Tyrese Campbell back with a bang at the top of the championship, that's for sure. Sidney Peck, Ollie. What a performance on the big occasion. That was a performance from Sidney Peck that really made me stand up and take notice and think, yeah, that's it. There's a proper footballer in there, just because of the way he controlled things. Yeah,
he's going to be a player. Like, he's going to be a very, very good player for somebody at some point in his career. Because, you know, feels bizarre to say, but, you know, if we were sat here 9 months ago, he was all set for a loan to Rotherham. Deal agreed. It was all perfect. That's where he was going. United were signing Hamza Chowdhury in the summer. Sidney Peck was going on loan to Rotherham. That was how it was going to work. Our starting midfield was going to be Vinny Souza and Ollie Arblaster. Hamza Chowdhury was the backup. There was no place really for Sidney Peck. He needed to go out, develop, have some time playing football for somebody else. The deal for Hamza Chowdhury falls through. Sidi Peck all of a sudden has to be the backup. Ollie Arblaster does his ACL, is out for the season. And from somebody who was going to be in League One on loan, just learning his craft, all of a sudden he's United's starting midfielder and arguably one of our 4 most important players. He's had an unbelievable breakout season. The way he controls that midfield battle against somebody as experienced as Barry Bannon. He's still able to really take control of a game, to sort of nullify the opposition's biggest strengths while leading attacks for United himself. The way that, we talked about the goal from Campbell's perspective. Rewind 10 seconds. That's Sidi Peck winning a ball in midfield. Maradona turning somebody and then playing a ball down the line. Like, it's just incredible central midfield play to create that chance and get Campbell in. For me, I think I personally haven't watched the other teams enough to make a massive judgment, but I'd be very shocked if Sidi Peck isn't the young player of the year in the Championship. And so to have gone from where he was this time last year as a little bit of a under 21 player who he might make it, he might not, we're not sure, to now being one of the most important players in a team who are the best in the Championship right now, it's a hell of a growth. And I think, he's probably been the player who's, I don't know what his ceiling is. That's how good I think he's going to be. I think he could go very, very far in the game. I just hope we can keep hold of him. And the fact that I'm saying it now as he'll be starting for his next season, Ollie Arblaster will be on the bench. That's how far Sidi Peck has come in 12 months and how much he's been a standout.
Yeah. I'm looking at Sheffield United's remaining fixtures. I think it's fair to say that other than Coventry at home and Burnley away on Easter Monday, obviously you've got 8 games remaining. I think of the other 6 games, I reckon you're probably going to win about 5 of those. I think you're probably, natural to expect that you might drop points in 1 or 2 of the other 6. But I think the games against Burnley and Coventry, of course, on Friday night, they're going to be absolutely crucial, aren't they?
Anything I say is going to be a jinx, Gab, from this point onwards. I am going to jinx absolutely anything that happens if I make too big of a statement. However, as you get to this stage of the season, the pressure tells. That's when people make mistakes. That's when people really start.
Mistakes.
That's why they make mistakes. Jesus. Learn to talk, Oliver. That's where people make mistakes. And that's when you really start to see who can handle the pressure. Because, games like Oxford away, Plymouth away, they are losable games of football. They're 2 teams who are going to be scrapping for their life, who've got decent home records, who are picking up the points there in particular. And so it's going to be difficult for us. Don't get me wrong, none of these games are a walkover. However, I look at the league table right now and I think 5 wins gets you automatic promotion. 5 wins takes Sheffield United to 95 points. Maybe you want to get another 2 just to cement it because of how high the standard is in that top 3 at the moment. But if 95 points is the target, and you're looking at those fixtures in front of us, it feels doable, let's say. Rather than that we will do it, because you can't guarantee anything, rather than that we should do it, because again, you don't want to guarantee, particularly with, other teams have got things to play for as well. However, yes, other than Coventry and Burnley, I thought the banana skins towards the end of this season were Wednesday, Coventry, Burnley. I thought we would lose at Hillsborough, because it just felt like it had got that banana skin written all over it. And then all the pressure is suddenly on because we're 3rd going into this international break. We've got a really hard game coming up straight after the international break. And suddenly you can be 5 points away and you've blown it already. Whereas now that we beat Wednesday, the momentum's behind us. And that can take you a long, long way.
Certainly can. Well, momentum's also taken Burnley a long, long way. We're now joined by Joe Redmond from the Turfcast. Joe, thanks so much for joining us. Just wondering, just that defensive consistency for Burnley. 11 goals conceded going into the last 8 games of the season is just absolutely phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's insane. And, it's great to see, obviously, Burnley fans will remember, obviously, a long, successful spell under Sean Dyche. And we kind of felt like that's what it was built on. It was built on a strong defence and a good mentality, a right mentality. And it kind of feels like we're back to that sort of like mentality and definitely kind of that style of play as well. So, yeah, obviously, we've seen some great defenders and goalkeepers at Burnley down the years. Tom Eaton, Nick Pope, Ben Mee, James Tarkowski. But I think these guys are going to be remembered as just as fondly as those guys now.
Certainly are. I'm just wondering about that centre-back pairing of Maxime Stev and CJ Egan-Riley. I think Egan-Riley's been suspended for the last one or two, but
no, it got rescinded. It got rescinded, and deservedly so as well. It was a trip, and I did think it was pretty petulant from CJ. I said that at the time, but I think the referee gave it for violent conduct, and it's good to get your guys' opinions on it. But it was clearly just a trip, and it's one of them sort of things where you see it happen like 3-4 times in a game, and it's a yellow. It's one of them. It's cynical. You give him a yellow, but I think when the referee saw it, I think he thought he kind of like lashed out at the lad. It was after the full-time whistle. That's where it kind of differentiates with and it becomes a grey area. But he didn't lash out at him. It just legged him up. And it's one of them. It's probably a yellow card, but it were never a sending off. So, yeah, it was rescinded, thankfully. So he did play yesterday. Not yesterday, Saturday.
Well,
yeah,
thanks.
I'm bitter about it. Absolutely bitter about it. Because I agree, to be honest, Joe. I didn't think it was a red card, but I thought it was generous to rescind it, shall we say, in the way that played out. And, speaking personally for me, I'd just extended it, give him another 5 games, see what happens.
I bet you would, yeah.
Feels like the right thing to do.
But they've been a phenomenal centre-back pairing this season, and both you'd normally associate such defensive consistency with maybe an experienced centre-back pairing. But Stev and CJ Egan-Riley are two young talents who have shown huge potential.
Yeah, huge potential. Obviously, CJ Egan-Riley is now in the England setup at the under-20s level, under-21. Sorry, Maxime Stev, he's in the French youth setup as well. So yeah, they've been fantastic, and I genuinely believe both of them will. They'll be playing in the Premier League next season, whether we are or not, and that's obviously the flip side of where we are now in the battle and stuff. That if we don't go up, Trafford as well, he'll be in the Premier League next season, whether we are or not. And I do think both of them, and obviously bring Trafford into the conversation as well. All three of them will go to the top and will be winning things and will be playing, at the top level for a long time, I think.
No, I think that's fair. And I think as well, it's the ridiculous consistency of it that has really sort of started to feel like it's rolling a little bit right now at Burnley, because I think earlier in the season, there were lots of questions where it was, defensively, yeah, absolutely solid, but games are getting a little bit compact. They're just as likely to draw 0-0 as they are to sort of be the team that kick on and really get that goal. Yeah. The player for me who's I might be the player who excites me more than anybody else in the division at this moment in time. Talk to me a little bit about Marcus Edwards, because, that defense is insane. Man. We know that they're going to the top, but how far could that man go? I still think it's insane that he's playing in the Championship.
That's what I mean. I've said several times now, I think he's of the same sort. Do you remember when everyone lost their heads? And rightly so, when Lefebvre was brought into the Championship. Like, everyone was like, oh my God, what is this guy doing in the Championship? And I agree. And until his injury, he played very, very well. I remember watching him at the Turf in his first game that he played in about 6 months, just pulling the strings, pinging balls. I'm like, yeah, Sunderland might actually be a problem here. Thankfully, now they're not. But yeah, Marcus Edwards came in as well, and he's of a similar ilk. Like he is of that level. And I can't remember the exact stat because it wasn't my page that posted it. I think it was the Burnley way. I think in the 10 games that Marcus Edwards has been at Burnley now, apologies if this isn't exact, we've scored 17 goals in that time. In the 10 before that, I think it was something like 7. Like you say, we've got this defensive stability. We have this rock at the back. Nobody scored more than 1 goal against us this season in the league, unless you played against our B team in the FA Cup. Just get that one in. So it just doesn't happen very often. And then now you've got Edwards as well to push us forward, and I just think he's coming at the right time, and everything's sort of like gelling at the right time. Like, obviously, I was in the room earlier, Ollie, when you were talking about sort of like Burnley's defensive stability, but they might not have too much else in terms of goals. We've actually caught Sheffield United up a little bit now. I think we're 1 goal behind you now for this season. So yeah, and that's because of the Edwards factor, because of the last few games. Obviously, we put 4 past Sheffield Wednesday. I'm sure you would have enjoyed that. 4 past Luton. Obviously, we were helped with 10 men on that situation as well. But yeah, honestly, I could sit here and talk all day about Marcus Edwards. I think he is or could be the difference between us finishing 3rd and us finishing in the top 2. Or if we do finish 3rd, I don't think anyone in the playoffs is going to want to play against Marcus Edwards.
No,
Joe, I think the one thing that really stood out to me in that victory at Swansea was the front four and those sort of quick transitional attacks and how quickly they all rotate and interchange and link up. And it was some really sort of slick football, I think, between Jayden Anthony, Zian Fleming, Josh Brownhill, and Marcus Edwards, and they've got a great understanding. And when those two are on each other's wavelengths and combining that well, you don't actually need loads of players flying forward from the deeper areas. That you can actually hold a pretty solid shape and just ask those four to go and do their stuff.
Exactly that. I feel like that is the front four that we should be using. I think that is the front four that could get us over the line. Scott Parker, for all his sort of like negativity and stuff like that, one of the things that I sometimes get annoyed with Scott Parker is he does like to tinker with it a little bit. Like sometimes he'll play Hannibal and then he'll push Brownhill a little bit further backwards, and then the midfield looks a little bit disjointed. But that front four you just mentioned there, Jayden Anthony, for some reason, he was a bit of a scapegoat earlier in the season, but he's been consistent. He's provided the most big chances for Burnley. He's provided the most assist G. I don't know, whatever these random new stats are. So it said something to me that he's doing something right. And then obviously Marcus Edwards come in, done something, as we've already mentioned. Zian Fleming can be quite frustrating at times, but he scores goals at the same time, which is something that Lyle Foster doesn't do. And to be fair, that's probably my only thing. Sometimes when he takes Zian out and brings Foster in, I don't necessarily mind it because I feel like Foster is more of a number 9 and then can stretch the play, whereas Zian tends to come a little bit deeper and try and pick the ball up, but he doesn't hold it up as well. But you can't really argue with his output. He scored, 8-9 goals this season. Obviously, he got another one at the weekend as well. So, in fact, no, he didn't. I'm talking rubbish. The weekend before. But yeah, I feel like that is a front four that can do very well, and I feel like, as we've already talked about the Burnley's defence, everybody's talked about it about a million times so far this season, but now we are starting to look good going forward as well, and I think that is the difference now. Like, we're not the same Burnley that we're drawing 0-0 at Oxford and all these 0-0s. Famous last words, we'll draw 0-0 at home to Bristol City now, which wouldn't be the worst result in the world, to be fair.
Very decent.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. I do feel like now we are a more complete side. Like, I feel like the front four have gelled better. It helps that Edwards is in there and the defensive stability is still there. So I feel like we are a far more complete side than what we were earlier in the season. But will these draws at home to the likes of Derby, Preston, Blackburn, all these rubbish teams, is that going to catch up with us? I think it might do. We'll see. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I found myself making some controversial statements, didn't I, a couple of weeks ago, Gav, where I all season I've been convinced by a long way that Leeds are by a mile the best team in this league, and I stand by it.
I think I said it as well recently.
Yeah, but I think watching them, they are by far the best team in this league. I think they are streets ahead of everybody else in terms of their creativity, the way they control games, the way that they sort of create. However, I have got some question marks about the mentality-wise response that Leeds might have with 10 games to go. And I actually backed Burnley to win the league, to be the team that really kick on. I said that I thought you'd probably beat us at Turf Moor, and that actually with the consistency, with that run without losing, with that sort of defensive stability tied to the X factor that Edwards and the others can now bring to that attack, that you were the most likely to really kick on towards the end of the season with 8 games to go. At the time, it was with 10 games to go. How are you feeling about those chances? Do you think, you said there, you referred to those draws in the past. Yeah. I said to Gab earlier, I think it's 16 points needed now for United. Well, United need 15. I think Burnley will probably need 17 to get to sort of 95, which should be the line. Yeah. How confident are you feeling now, sort of feeling that it's in your own hands, looking at the run of form that you're on? I think it's probably Coventry away that looks like the real banana skin, but for the most part, it feels like Burnley are in a great position to really kick on these last 8.
I mean, coming back to the Leeds point that you started that with, it's nice to have them brought back into it. Obviously, it helps both of us. I think I spoke last time I spoke to Gab, what were it, Gab, 2-3 weeks ago? And I think I said to you, Leeds will kick on, they'll win the league. I think they'll win more points than both Burnley and Sheffield United between now and the end of the season, and then extending their lead even further and winning the league. It's between us and Sheffield United. And again, I know you referenced it earlier, Ollie, but I always said that I felt that Sheffield United would potentially lose at QPR. you won. Potentially lose at Hillsborough, you won. Both games didn't play well at all, as is standard for Sheffield United. So I am looking at, I was getting giddy. I was getting excited thinking we can catch Sheffield United. Now you're winning these games without playing well. I'm kind of thinking they're just going to do this all season. So I'm not, weirdly enough, even though Leeds have been dragged into it, I'm not as confident as I was like 2-3 weeks ago, because you keep winning these games and you were the team that I was earmarking. I still think Leeds, yeah, you are right. They have a mentality. There's something about when you're Leeds and when you're in this position. And that's why I like to try and wind them up on social media, because I know that I am contributing to the edginess of the fans, and I'm hoping that the fans getting edgy. Oh, remember that post from that guy, and then they're getting annoyed. Everyone's right, and it transcends onto the pitch. But it's a bizarre example. But look at England, for example. Every time they get to a final, there's a mentality issue, and that's why I don't think England kick on and win something at the minute. Obviously, fingers crossed we do soon. But I feel like Leeds as well. Obviously, I know they've been in a position where they have been promoted in the last few years as well. Obviously, under a very good manager in Marcelo Bielsa. But there's just something about that shirt and that crest and them fans and that stadium when it gets to this point. I think they were top at this point last year as well, and then ended up. Yeah. So if we keep it up, Ollie, like genuinely, like yes, I was obviously frustrated that you beat Sheffield Wednesday yesterday. I'm not going to deny that, but also at the same time, when I put it on Facebook, somebody said, yeah, but this is good because it keeps the pressure on Leeds, and some fans are now earmarking Leeds. Do I think we catch Leeds? No, I still think they kick on. There's just something about that squad that I think they'll ultimately kick on.
Good, aren't they?
Yeah, but I do agree. They were too good last year as well.
Yeah.
But it happened. Can it
They're
happen?
definitely a better collective team, I think, this year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But there's just something about it. There's just something about it. And if they, I think they've got 2 easier games. I can't remember exactly who they play after the international break, but it has to be minimum 6 points for Leeds in them 2 games, looking at who they've got. And if they don't get 6 points, and say, for example, Burnley and Sheffield United do, then yeah, they are.
They've had their dropped points. I think they gave them, with those victories over Burnley and Sheffield United, or Sunderland and Sheffield United, they gave themselves a bit of leeway for drop points, but withdrawing to West Brom, losing at Portsmouth, and then drawing at QPR, they've kind of eroded a bit of that leeway, if you like. So now, it's more, there's less room for error for them. But I think I wanted to come back to you, Joe, with Burnley, because I think my concern for Burnley is less what it was earlier in the season, which is creating enough chances, because I think you are getting better at that as the season's gone on. However, left back is a bit of a worry for me, because Bashir Humphreys is out, and I don't know if Lucas Perez can do the same kind of job.
Yeah, you are right. Humphreys is out. Obviously, international break now. I think he was out. Obviously, the club are quite tight-lipped, as every club seems to be these days, on length of injury. So we don't really know exactly how long he'll be out for. But the rumours were 6 to 8 weeks. I think that was around 3 weeks ago. So when he comes back from the international break, it'll be 1 to 3 weeks. But what I will say is, even though I agree, I feel Bashir Humphreys, we concede less with him in the side. I think even over the last few games, all right, one of them was a great free kick, to be fair. But, obviously we conceded at Cardiff as well, which I don't think we concede these sort of goals with Humphreys in the team. However, and I have tried to make the point a lot on Turfcast recently, is Perez has actually been playing really well. The last 2 games, he's played very, very well. He's still not as good defensively as Humphreys, I'll openly admit that, but I think he offers a little bit more going forward. He put a great cross in against West Brom for Fleming. Fleming, I don't know what happened with Fleming, but it was a brilliant ball. Not to bring it up, Ollie, but do you remember Josh Brownhill's goal at Bramall Lane and that cross from deep? That was from Humphreys. It was a very, very similar cross to that, but obviously Fleming couldn't put it in the back of the net. He was very, very good against West Brom. It was decent against Cardiff. I'm hoping now that means he can kick on, but I do agree it is a bit of a weak point, and especially in the FA Cup against Preston, because he did play in that one, even though it was the B team. I'll have to keep mentioning that, and I will keep mentioning that until the day I die. But it did look pretty poor in that game, but I think pretty much everyone had a poor game in that game. But yeah, it is a cause for concern, but probably not as concerned now personally. Obviously, I can't speak for everyone as what I was 2 weeks ago about Perez.
How are you feeling about the midfield spot in terms of alongside Josh Cullen? Because I know you mentioned you like Josh Brownhill further forward as part of that front four. How's Josh Laurent getting on alongside? A lot of Joshes in there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's Josh. We call it Josh cubed because of 3 Joshes.
Nice.
But you know what? Loren has been another one that I have sometimes criticised. On the ball, when the ball is at his feet, he looks like a £500,000 player from Stoke City. And I mean that within the greatest of respect for Stoke City and the fee that we paid for him. But off the ball, he's probably one of the best midfielders in the division. He is fantastic off the ball. He breaks the play up. He gets the ball, to Cullen or the more creative players. And he was fantastic against West Brom, and he played quite well against Cardiff as well. But was it West Brom? I can't remember if it was West Brom, but I think it was Cardiff where he was absolutely superb. But there's been a few games recently where he was absolutely superb, and I've been looking at him recently thinking, yes, maybe I have been a little bit harsh on him, but I like the midfield with him in there because, like I said, sometimes Parker does like to drop Loren and bring Hannibal in, and then he'll push Hannibal further forward and then drop Brownhill back a little bit. And even though I do feel like Hannibal is the better player of the two, I also feel like the midfield looks better with Loren in there alongside Cullen, and then Brownhill can just, arrive late in the box like he did against Cardiff and score goals.
He does that so well, I think.
He does it every week, doesn't he? He does it every single week.
It's just impeccable, his movement and the way he pops up into goal-scoring areas.
It's a knack he has, and for some reason, Scott Parker, every now and then, like I said, will put him further back and put Hannibal in there. And Hannibal's not quite as good at that. But even though I do feel like Hannibal is a better player than Josh Loren, our midfield looks much better with Loren, Cullen and Brownhill in there. And I think for me, that's how we should be playing the midfield going forward.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Joe, I don't know how your schedule's looking. You're more than welcome to stick around for another 20 minutes to join in the
general... I can do, mate. I can do.
Legend, cheers. So our next guest is Scott Worrell, a Leeds United fan, on YouTube as well. You can go and get subscribed. Scott, thanks so much for joining us. How are you feeling about Leeds United's promotion prospects?
To be honest, I'm feeling quite down with it all, to be honest. I think as Leeds fans, everyone says we're the best team and all this, and it's sort of boring. And I think even if we are the best team, we've seen Leeds do this year on year. I didn't think Ipswich and Leicester were miles better than us last year, and they got top 2. Didn't think Southampton were miles better as they got promoted. I mean, we played Ipswich and Leicester last year and beat them both home and away. So that sort of speaks for itself, really. This year, sort of similar. Obviously, we beat Sheffield United home and away. We've beat Burnley, to be fair, have had our number, to be fair to them. But we've beat majority of the better teams around us. We beat Sunderland and we should have beaten them twice. But I feel that we're sort of stepping into the usual Leeds United motion again, really, at this time of the season. That's my feeling. And yes, you might say there's no logic in it, and potentially there isn't any logic because we've scored the most goals. As I said, I still think we've got arguably the best team in the league. But I am getting seriously frustrated with it now, to be honest with you, because I don't know, I'm sick of this sort of the ending that Leeds United seem to produce season on season, really.
Yeah,
but maybe not the answer you expected.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you switch back to, I don't think it was more than 3 weeks ago when you'd beaten Sunderland and you'd won at Bramall Lane. And it felt like a massive breakthrough. Here we go, Leeds United. We're pulling clear of the rest. And then you drop points against West Brom. You lose at Fratton Park. You draw at QPR, coming back from 2 down. And it feels like a lot of that good work that was done, beating your immediate promotion rivals, has actually been eroded a little bit. Would that be fair?
That's absolutely fair, mate. I think that's sort of bang on. I think, to be honest, I look back and just really glad that we actually did get them games over the line, because I can only imagine where we'd been had we ended up drawing or losing against Sunderland and obviously not picking up the 4 points against Sheffield United. I mean, we'd be way back. So it was, looking back, it was just a really good job. But you do think, like, I look at it now and I think we're 8 points clear at Burnley at the time after we beat Sheffield United. Why can we not push on? Like, I just don't get why we can't do that. The West Brom game, I totally got that. But then to go down to Fratton Park, with the greatest respect, they're a newly promoted team. And I know we team that was a bit of a slightly different game because we had tons of chances, like Pro missed an open goal, even though he's one of the best finishes in the league, in my opinion. He missed an open goal, and he missed like a one-on-one that I probably would have scored. And obviously it's a Meslier mistake again. I want to pull my hair out with that, but yeah, we just didn't. And so that game I sort of maybe could understand. And then I think we get back to sort of winning ways, obviously against Millwall, and I'm thinking there we have. I didn't think the performance was fully sort of at its peak really, but the job was done. And then against QPR in the first half, and we got beat 4-0 down there last year. And to be honest, when it was 2-0, I thought it was going to go in a similar way. I thought we were quite lucky actually to get back into the game with the goal that we scored in the first half. But then we get the goal with Bogle straight after half time, and you think, well, I think at that point, surely you've got to go and push on to the win. I know from 2-0 down, technically a good result to obviously get back to a draw, but it doesn't feel like a good result when you equalise on the 51st minute. It really doesn't. I think where is the sort of the next step to then go and win the game? And yes, I think for the next 15 minutes we looked like we might go on and win the game, but then we sort of just stopped and QPR got themselves back into the game. So yeah, to be honest, as I said, I am seriously frustrated with it, and I feel like we're just going down the same path that we did last year. We did in the first year of Bielsa, and yeah, I'm not particularly feeling that great about it all, to be honest, at the moment.
How much of a problem is the away form, Scott? Because it's not that. I mean, and we say this again, Leeds have very few problems in the team. They are third in the league for away form in the context of a question of how much of a problem is the away form. But obviously that does seem to be where these sort of mistakes start to creep in. That's where the sort of mentality against Portsmouth, where you can't just force it over the line, against QPR, where you've had this amazing comeback, but it stops on the 51st minute rather than being the sort of catalyst to really go on and win that game. What do you think the difference is? Is it just not having the atmosphere of Elland Road? Do you approach games differently?
I don't really know. I think a massive thing when you're going away from home is I think you need to have a good keeper. I think that helps massively. Because we like the Fratton Park one, it's just a Meslier mistake again, and I'm sick of talking about it really. But he's like, if he just comes out and collects the ball and doesn't panic and sort of go for it and then end up in no man's land. Like Trafford and Cooper both claim it, and there's no issue there. And then we might end up scoring and winning the game, which I think we've seen a lot with Sheffield United. Because I think, no offense probably to Sheffield United, but I watch you and I don't. Truthfully, I'm not sure you're that good. I know this sounds.
Ollie agrees, mate. I think Ollie agrees with that.
It sounds truly ridiculous, and it sort of sounds like I'm bitter, and I'm not really. I'm sort of like, but I do wonder how you get it over the line. But yeah, I think you get it over the line because you've got. I think Cooper's massive for that, and I think we miss something like that massively. And I think I do look back, and I think in the summer, like we've talked about how great our summer's been. We sold Kamara for 10 million. We bought Tanaka in for 3 million. He was a miles better player, like brilliant business, and he's younger as well. But not addressing the goalkeeper situation. It's just complete negligence. And because he's just cost us so many times away from home, and we're finding it all the time now. We're back to going 1-0 down constantly. I think I think before the Sunderland game, we hadn't conceded a goal in 6. Since then, we've gone 1-0 down 4 times out. I think the 5 games that we've played or something ridiculous. Now,
do you know what I think as well, Scott? I think one of the reasons why, more recently the away form has been a challenge is because opposing teams have had a more attacking mindset, and it's maybe exposed some of the question marks around Meslier that don't get exposed at Elland Road. But when West Brom went there, granted, West Brom have got some good Championship players like Mickey Johnston and John Swift, but they actually took the game to you, and I quite liked that as an approach for visiting teams to Elland Road. And I suppose, would you almost be hoping that, forthcoming visitors don't follow suit?
Not an extent, because Millwall sort of came at us, especially in the first half, and I usually just think especially at Elland Road, we just seem to pick teams off. I'm not particularly worried about our home form because our home form's comfortably the best in the league. But like we've got Luton away coming up, and like Sheffield United just gone down there and won 1-0 a few weeks ago. I am convinced we won't win that game. I'm absolutely convinced of it. It's just, it screams of everything Leeds United messing it up. Like we'll go 1-0 down from a corner where Meslier flaps it, and we'll probably end up getting beat 1-0. Like that is the script, and that's sort of where I'm feeling with it. Swansea at home, I think we'll win. Middlesbrough, I actually think we've got more chance in because of the sort of, it's a bigger pitch. They'll come at us, but I think we'll beat it potentially in transition like we did last season. And I think stuff like people like Dan James stuff could be massive in a game like that. But looking at it now, why on earth, with the team we've got, should I be thinking about potentially going down to Luton and expecting that we're not going to win. And I think that's sort of a microcosm of the rest of the Leeds United fan base. Now, there's some Leeds United fans who just think we're the best team in the league, we're going to win every game. But I don't really buy that. And I think majority of people, me and my dad were talking about it, and they're the same. I mean, my brother's a bit more just than I am, but he still thinks Luton will be an issue for us. So yeah, I just don't think we've got a performance like that in us. I think Sheffield United go down there, and I don't think they played that well at Luton, but they managed to get it over the line. I think when we win because we're the much better team. I don't think we win when we're crap, Matt.
Yeah. When we went to Luton, it were 45 minutes. We could have been about 3 down. They'd hit the bar. They'd missed about 4 yards.
This should happen every week with Sheffield. Am I living in cuckoo land here? By the way, does this happen with Sheffield United every week?
Honestly, it genuinely is every week. Like every week, I watch them, and I don't think they look at it. But I think again, I spoke to Gav at the start of the season, and I remember saying to Gav, like, I think Sheffield United, they aren't playing well, but they're grinding out results. I think they'll go on and kick on and win the league. I did reverse that after a bit, because after 3-4 months, they were still playing poorly, and I'm like, they can't carry on like this all season, but they literally have. They've done it all season, and they're just not playing well and winning games. And I just think now it's got to the stage of the season where it's 8 games left. They've accumulated the most points in the league. You just got to sit back. You've got to respect it. You've got to be like, for some reason, he knows what he's doing here.
So I've got a question, guys. Starting with you, Ollie. Which of the 2 automatic promotion rivals are you most scared about?
As in we have to play them, or as in...
No, as in scared about as an automatic promotion rival.
Burnley. I think Burnley are going to win the league. I said it before. Leeds are the best team in the league. I have no doubt. Genuinely,
nothing. That's the thing, in my mind. It's irrelevant now.
At this stage, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And that's what's so frustrating, is that I actually feel it for you, Scott, because I've sat here all season and I've said by 10 points or more, Leeds will win the league. And I said it consistently until about the middle of February. And then you beat us at Bramall Lane, and I said, there you go. It's 5 points now. It'll be 10, 15. They'll run away and get 105 by the end of the season. And then the last month happened. And that absolutely just threw me through a loop a little bit, because I didn't see it coming. But now, in this position, it reminds me so much of last season, when Leeds, I think at that time, had got 82 points. So it's 80 now. I think it was 82 points last season, 2 points clear of third, top of the league, ready to kick on. And it's the games coming up. If you were playing United and you were playing Burnley, I'd say Leeds will win those games and they'll pick up 6 points and they'll go on and win the league. But they're playing Luton and Plymouth and Oxford, and they're the games where it just feels like, whether it's complacency, whether it's nervousness, whatever it is, that seems to be where Leeds are potentially more vulnerable. They'd beat us if we had to play them over 90 minutes. There's no team in the league that I would want to play less. But to collect points enough to go to the end of the season, Burnley are the team that I think will win the league.
Joe, which of the 2 scares you the most?
Still Leeds for me. Like, I get everything that Ollie's just said, and I agree. This last month has given me a different perspective on Leeds, and I was saying literally 2 weeks ago, there's no point in even talking about Leeds or go on and win the league comfortably. Do I think they'll win the league comfortably now? Probably not. Do I still think they'll win it? Yes, but only just. I think that the saving grace for Leeds this season is that Burnley and Sheffield United have to play each other. So there's going to be a game week where one of us or both of us drops points, and that's the saving grace for Leeds. I know, Scott, you've just mentioned there about Luton. Mate, I know they got a player sent off against us 2 weeks ago, but they were genuinely the worst team I've seen at the turf.
I know, but it doesn't matter. I'm telling you,
they were awful.
Games, it doesn't. I don't know why. I can't explain this another way, but it just doesn't matter. Like
Luton at Kenilworth Road
it is different. I admit Luton at Kenilworth Road is different, but again, Sheffield United have been there recently. Well, I think in your next 2 games you get 6 points. And I think then you will then kick on from there. And then obviously, like I said, Burnley and Sheffield United have got to play each other. I'm still just looking at Sheffield United. I can't speak for all Burnley fans, obviously, but me personally, I'm still looking at Sheffield United. Yes, I did get a bit giddy when you drew to QPR at the weekend. I was then thinking, my God, maybe Leeds are the team that can be dragged out of it. But I was a little bit more frustrated when Sheffield United won, and I still feel like Leeds will eventually kick on and win the league. I think you've just had your blip. I think now international breaks come at the right time for you. I think you'll kick on and then win the league.
I just think we've got to prove something now. I think we've if this team think that they are like, we had Strout come out after the sort of the Millwall game saying we've got like 9 cup finals left, and then we put in the first half performance against QPR. And I'm like, well, is it a cup final or not? Then what are you just? Is it words? I do think, and we've obviously lost Ampadu. I think he's massive, especially for our way form. But I think he might be back near on the end of the season because he's not decided to have an operation. He's decided to just sort of, I don't know, patch it up. I don't know how they do it, whatever they do. So I think he coming back could be massive. But as I said, I think we are probably the 3 teams. I think we've got the most to prove now because we've got to show that we're not this team that just like basically bottle jobs. Like I think that's what we've got to. I want to see something different when we go. Like if we beat Swansea, fine. I expect that really. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I do. But if we go, as I said, if we go to Luton and actually put on a performance and actually win the game, and don't sort of find ourselves 2-0 down at half time or something ridiculous, then I might ask for a different. But we didn't. Like at QPR again, they proved me right. They didn't prove me wrong.
Well, I suppose Pascal Struijk has kind of proven people wrong in recent form because he's dropped off a lot when he would have been considered for much of the season among your top 3 players, Scott. Is that a surprise for you, Pascal Struijk's drop in form, and do you have a possible explanation for it?
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, obviously Ampadu was playing at centre half, and as I said, we'd gone 6 games without conceding a goal. But even when we were not going on this run, I was like, well, Strout's a miles better centre half. Like, why are we not playing him? But I don't know. I just think that he's come back from injury and he's just a bit slightly off it. To be honest, I think it's been over-egged the pudding that more than it probably is. I don't think he's been like truly horrendous. But
right.
But yeah, I can't. I just said I can't really work it out. I feel like I'm not giving enough here, but I can't work out why we do what we do, other than it's like the pressure feels like. I'm at the point with it where I generally think like the people blame Farke, people blame the players, people blame blah blah blah. I feel like we could have the Liverpool squad and have, I don't know, any manager in the world in charge, and we'd still mess it up somehow. Like that's how irrational I'm sort of with it. Out with it really.
Interesting. Yeah, it does feel like because of the pressure of Leeds United and the expectation of being, one of the top 8 clubs in the country, that there is a kind of weight that comes with that maybe has hindered Leeds United at the business end of the season. But I still look at it like I think the rest of the Championship, including Sheffield United and Burnley, would probably swap squads with Leeds, even if it meant having Meslier, because you've got Jayden Bogle and Junior Firpo who have been amazing fullbacks. You've got Struijk, who's been one of your best players this season, bar the last couple of months. Joe Rodon as well. You've got Ethan Ampadu, who's a fantastic footballer, whether that's defence or midfield. Some brilliant midfielders. Quality wide men in Manor Solomon and Dan James. Willie Gnonto obviously made a huge difference off the bench at QPR. And then a couple of pretty good strikers in Matteo Joseph and Joel Pirro. So yes, there's a goalkeeping issue, but I do wonder whether there's that and also the kind of Leeds are falling apart sort of rhetoric can kind of colour actually, this is a pretty good squad,
It's by far the best squad, I think. I think they are. Again, I think in every single metric other than the goalkeeper, and I kind of really sympathise with Scott because it's completely irrational. And I feel it in my own head is that it's completely irrational because by every metric, Leeds are the best team in this league. Like they concede the least chances, the least quality chances. They create the best chances, score the most goals. When you look at the squads, they've got the best players running through almost every position other than in the net. And then it's hard to find anything that is a fault at the squad. And yet, why we should not be having this conversation mid-March. Like ultimately, like if Leeds had just been able, or even the other side of that is that 80 points from 38 games is a ridiculous return. It's just that United and Burnley
are getting the most ever points this year, I think. Yeah. No doubt about it.
It's been a ridiculous run from all 3 teams. Whoever goes up absolutely deserves it. Whoever doesn't go up, it's an absolute joke that we have to play the team that finishes 6th in this league in the playoffs, by the way.
And then probably get beat. Get beat. Could you imagine? I'd be fuming.
lose to somebody who finishes 40 plus points behind you. You're kind of like, how is this a thing? Like,
Well,
how
we
have
were
we
there,
got
we
to
were
play
there.
against
They're out
these?
the playoffs.
Bizarre. But yeah, it feels weird because Leeds are the best team in this league. But when the pressure's on now, this next 8 games, like you say, it's countering that narrative. It does the pressure of the noise and everything else mean more than the quality of the squad. And that's what they're out to prove.
For me, if Leeds can dig out a win at Luton, that would prove to me more than going and winning at Middlesbrough on the following Tuesday, because I think Luton away is actually going to end up being a harder fixture, personally. I think Leeds will win at Middlesbrough quite comfortably, but I think Luton away is going to be a real examination in terms of cross into the box and pressure, and it's whether Leeds United can deal with the chaos at Kenilworth Road. That's going to be a big question mark for me. That's going to define the promotion chances.
They're the games. Oxford away will struggle at. If we can get anything from there, I mean, I'm saying anything, we need to win, really. If we can win at Oxford, win at Luton, I think Plymouth should already be relegated, hopefully, on the final day. So that might be okay. Yeah. Even then, I don't even know, because I think there's still a rhetoric that you want to mess Leeds up, potentially. It sounds like I'm crying wolf here. I'm really not. Like, fair play of them to get finished above us, and we better mess it up again. But yeah, I also like we've got a thing that follows us, haven't we? Like, everywhere we go, like QPR. I don't think there's a more renowned song in the Championship potentially than Leeds Are Falling Apart Again. Like, I don't know.
We all right, Leeds.
Every single club in the whole country thinks like that. I don't. Did anyone name one, by the way? Like, is there a song?
No,
I don't know the song that where Sheffield United go down at QPR and there'd be a song that universally sung by every Championship team.
No.
But as soon as we go 1-0 down, which we do all the time at the moment, that is obviously coming straight out, which is fair enough. I mean, game for game, isn't it?
Right. Ollie, top 2.
Top 2. I think, screw it. Right, commit. I think Burnley and United is what I'm backing. I've got to back my own team. I'm backing Burnley to win the league, United to come second. However, I do just want to put at the back of Joe's mind that United's last game of the season this season.
Oh, mate, trust me, I already know who it is. I have seen it and I'm fuming. I saw Scott earlier talking about last game of the season. I'm like, you've got no idea, mate. The full Bramall Lane. There won't be anyone at the away end because there never is. But the full Bramall Lane Stadium will be all cheering and hoping that Sheffield United get promoted, mate.
Blackburn will be out of the playoff scramble by then as well.
They're out of it now, Gabby. They're out of it now, mate.
Yeah.
So Blackburn will be out. We'll be there, ready to go up. Maybe it'll be a direct challenge with Burnley. Let's hope Blackburn can do us all a favour if we need it.
All we need to be, if we are above you on the final day of the season, fine. You can have your little, Blackburn celebration thing. We cannot mess up on that final day. But obviously, if we're 2 points behind you and Leeds are already up, for example, then, yeah, we can kiss the promotion chances goodbye, I think, with your final game.
So who's your top 2 then, Jay?
Sunderland. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I still think Leeds win it. And I think Burnley sneak into it. But like I said, I'm not as confident as I was 2 weeks ago. That win at Hillsborough has really dampened my squid for Sheffield United.
I've never heard that dampened your squid. I've never heard the expression used in that context.
I just changed it up a bit. It's probably illiterally incorrect. I
like it. I think you're a trendsetter, Jay.
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's just something about Sheffield United where I'm just thinking, will you just stop? Will you just stop doing it? Just stop.
After Bristol City, I thought, oh, here we go. Finally, they've not held on to a shocking 1-0 win that they've had all season. So when I saw that, I was like, this might be. And then they grind one out off a deflection cross after getting
just
battered.
Stop doing it, Ollie. Have a word with Chris Wilder and just stop. But the thing is, when I see Leeds beat Cardiff 7-0, you just think, fair enough, that there's just class. You've got to let them have it. But when I see you scab the 15th win in a row, I'm like, for God's sake, what is going on here?
Does it feel like that, though? Do you feel like you're surviving on, or do you feel like, well, actually, sod yous, we're grinding them out. We know what we're doing.
It's weird, to be honest, because for example, against Bristol City, we did not deserve to be 1-0 up. That felt a little bit like, Jesus, we're robbing one here. And there, I'd probably say it alternates week on week, where some weeks you think, Jesus Christ, we've absolutely robbed them. Like, we talk about, we played Portsmouth at Bramall Lane and got played off the park. No idea how we won.
I watched that game, so I didn't watch it, but but I know, like, how missing like open goals again. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, every chance somehow didn't end up in the back of our net, and our 2 chances did end up in the back of theirs. And there are games like that just feel like we cannot keep doing this. It feels so unsustainable. But for the majority, what we see more than anything else is generally a pretty controlled 60 minutes where you think, right, we've not created loads, we've not gone and battered somebody 3-0, but we're 1-0 up, deserve to be 1-0 up and are well in control of this game. It's generally then that once we've gone 1-0 up, we make our subs, and the last 30 minutes, regardless of what we do, always just feels like defending. It feels like almost it's the tactic to go from control the game, see what happens for an hour, get 1-0 up, and then just hold it. And yeah, it does feel frustrating at times, and it feels not great for my, blood pressure. Very not great for my dad's blood pressure.
Like what you've seen all season now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
exactly the same every week.
I don't think they're lucky anymore. They're doing it.
No, I agree. I do agree.
I would say we've earned our luck. That's the way I'm going to sell it, because there has to be an element of it.
I mean, we talk about that save made against Bristol City is just outstanding. Like,
yeah,
we've got a keeper who throws it in his own net. You've got a keeper who throws it out his own net, basically. So, I mean, that's the difference.
Yeah. It makes a huge difference. And obviously then you go to the game at Hillsborough, and he's made a fantastic save from Michael Smith in the first half, made a great save from Marvin Johnson in the second. Svante Ilgelson's somehow missed the open net on the rebound after his save. And it's those moments where you kind of go, I think Michael Cooper has earned the luck for it to not go in the back of the net, but there's still a bit of luck there for why it hasn't gone in the back of the net.
Perfect.
Are you worse defensive without? Because Suter, you were quite sturdy with him, but have you definitely dropped off without him defensively?
Massively, yeah. So I always use this same stat, but at the point that Harry Suter got injured, our goals conceded per game for games that Harry Suter played is the same as Burnley's. We'd conceded 0.3 goals per game when Harry Suter played. We were very much on track to be sort of keeping up and not conceding any goals at all. Obviously, at Bramall Lane, we'd conceded none. He'd never conceded a goal when he played until Boxing Day. And so it was a ridiculous run. Without him, I think we now concede 1.2 goals per game, I think it is. Obviously, we've kept a couple of clean sheets, so it might need updating, but it's around just over 1 goal per game without him. So definitely been a huge drop-off since Harry Suter has been injured. But that has been tied into, we've had the recruitment, we've got Brereton Diaz in, we've got a little bit more going forwards now. So it does feel like we're more likely to score 2 than we were before Suter's injury, but we're definitely more likely to concede 1.
Makes a lot of sense. Scott, who'd be your top 2?
I've said all this nonsense, but I saw a stat after we beat Sheffield United, and our XG for compared to XG against was +40. And the second team in the league were Coventry at +12. So, I mean, it's got to, surely we can do it. So I'm going to back us. And I also think that potentially, like, I look at Burnley's fixtures, I think they're quite hard. I think they're the worst, probably all of us. Although you have been pretty good in the trickier games, to be fair. So maybe I'm wrong, but I am going to say that, yeah, we'll win the league. And I think Sheffield United, just because the fixtures are slightly better, even though potentially I think Burnley slightly better team, I think Sheffield United will do it. So yeah, I'll go Leeds and Sheffield United.
I'll go Leeds and Burnley. There you have it. I know, yeah. You can win the playoffs, Ollie.
No, we can't. That never happens.
Burnley, by the way, if Burnley finish third, they definitely win the playoffs. The way they play, not conceding, they'll just grind it out and win.
I think the only way to guarantee all 3 go up is Burnley going in the playoffs.
I'm absolutely convinced they'll get. If they get in playoffs,
next year.
Us and Sheffield United, I'm not sure in playoffs, but Burnley 100% through playoffs will do it. Parker's done it before as well with Fulham, so.
Yeah, he has, but I am worried about Coventry. If I'm not going to lie to you, over 2 legs. I think obviously we've got to play him at the CBS as well yet, so that'd be a good indicator to see if we do end up playing them. But
I think they'll get 5th though, Joe. So I think if you finish 3rd, you'd only play Coventry in the final.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That in a one-off game, they are capable of beating us. Like that pitch at Wembley's a big pitch. And if anywhere you can stretch the Burnley defence, it's on that Wembley pitch. Yes, it'll be difficult to stretch the Burnley defence. And I presume everybody who finishes in the playoffs, if we do finish in the playoffs, will say, I don't want to play Burnley. They're going to be more scared of us than we are of them, but that doesn't mean that they aren't capable of beating us.
You'll be fine.
But, well, there you have it. Listen, gents, thanks so much for joining us on the Championship podcast to talk about the automatic promotion race. Lots of lively debate. Really appreciate your time, Scott. Likewise, Joe. Thanks to Ollie, wonderful co-host. Get yourself subscribed to Scott Worrell on YouTube, to the Turfcast podcast, and to Sheffield United Way, and also EFL Debate as well. If you've enjoyed this.
Plug yourself, mate. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you've enjoyed this episode, give it a subscribe and give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to get automatic promotion, and we'll see you again next week for another Championship podcast.